The apartment fell silent, a suffocating quiet that swallowed the echo of Isabel's mocking laughter. Shards of the ceramic vase she'd bought last week lay scattered across the oak floor, its white lilies strewn like mourners at the funeral of our 7-year marriage. Water from the broken vase seeped into the wood, cold and unforgiving, just like her eyes when she yanked off her wedding ring and tossed it into the trash. $40,000, our savings for a house, vanished. My wife, the marketing coordinator obsessed with perfection, had walked out with her flashy gym trainer, leaving me in the wreckage. Hours earlier, I'd come home ahead of schedule, a rare break from my architectural blueprints. I'm a man of precision, a 36-year-old architect who finds comfort in clean lines and measurable outcomes. I'd hoped to surprise Isabel with dinner, maybe bridge the growing distance between us. Instead, I overheard her voice, syrupy and conspiratorial, from our bedroom. She was on the phone with Julian, her trainer. He's too buried in his drawings to love. Clueless. Soon, we'll have our new life. My heart stopped, each word a hammer against my ribs. I stood frozen, gripping the kitchen counter, until she hung up, oblivious to my presence. I waited. When she emerged, all glossy confidence, I met her gaze and said, "I heard you. About Julian." For a moment, she froze, her green eyes narrowing. Then she laughed, a sharp, ugly sound that cut deeper than I'd expected. So, the great Daniel finally notices something outside his sketches. She slipped off her ring, the diamond catching the light as it spun in her hand. "Look at yourself, Dan. A dried-up architect, married to your desk, sporting a beer gut and zero spark. Julian? He's alive, passionate. He knows how to live." Each word landed like a calculated blow, designed to unravel me. She grabbed her suitcase, packed with the precision of someone who'd planned this for months, and strode toward the door. "You're a ghost of a man," she said, pausing at the threshold. "Julian's everything you'll never be." The door slammed, and the vase hit the floor before I realized I'd thrown it. I sank into the couch, replaying our 7 years together, searching for the cracks I'd missed. We'd met at a friend's gallery opening, her laughter bright against the hum of pretentious chatter. I was drawn to her energy, her knack for making the world bend to her vision. We married in a quiet ceremony, just family and close friends, promising to build a life together. I poured myself into work, chasing projects that would secure our future a home, maybe kids someday. Isabel thrived on her career, curating a flawless online persona, always chasing the next shiny thing. I thought my steady grind complemented her fire. I was wrong. The shift started a year ago. She joined a new gym, one of those sleek chains with neon lights and promises of transformation. At first, I was glad she seemed happier, healthier. Then Julian entered the picture. His name slipped into every conversation. "Julian says stress ages you faster than time. Julian thinks we should all chase what sets us free." Her comments turned sharper, slicing at my long hours, my uninspired routines, my softening middle. "You used to care about yourself," she'd say, eyeing my takeout dinner. I brushed it off, blaming her obsession with social media, where she'd scroll through lives that looked better than ours. She'd sigh at our rented apartment, muttering about needing more. I told. The days after Isabel's departure blurred into a haze of sleepless nights and hollow routines. My apartment, once a shared space of laughter and late-night talks, felt like a tomb, its silence broken only by the hum of the fridge or the occasional bark from Buddy, our golden retriever. I moved through my architectural firm like a shadow, my designs lacking their usual precision. My mind churned, replaying Isabel's venomous words, each one a splinter lodged in my chest. I was 36, a man who'd built a career on order, yet my life had crumbled overnight. I acted swiftly to protect what remained. I called the bank to freeze our joint accounts, my voice steady despite the ache in my throat. I removed Isabel's name from our credit cards and canceled her car insurance, each click of the mouse a small rebellion against her betrayal. I contacted a lawyer, a woman named Karen with a no-nonsense tone, who promised to dig into the $40,000 theft. These were necessary steps, but they felt mechanical, like sketching a blueprint for a house I'd never live in. At night, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts a tangle of anger and grief. I wondered where I'd gone wrong, how I'd missed the unraveling of the woman I'd loved. A flicker of clarity came unexpectedly. Maya, a trainer from Isabel's gym, reached out through a mutual acquaintance. She was different from Julian, focused, professional, with a quiet intensity. That put me at ease. We met at a coffee shop, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill in my bones. Maya's dark eyes held no pity, only resolve. She explained that she'd heard whispers about Isabel's affair and seen her flaunting it online, posting selfies with Julian captioned with promises of a new life. Maya disliked Julian, not just for his arrogance, but for a troubling incident with another client, a woman who'd left her husband after Julian's coaching. I listened, my coffee growing cold, as Maya unveiled Julian's pattern. She described how he targeted women like Isabel, polished, successful, but restless, their confidence masking deeper insecurities. Julian played the savior, offering validation and dreams of reinvention. He'd listen, flatter, and then nudge them toward drastic choices, isolating them from their old lives. Maya leaned forward, her voice low. She mentioned Julian's late-night calls, always from a woman named Serafina, and his boasts about quick-profit investments. She suspected someone else pulled strings behind him. Maybe this Serafina, whose name appeared on credit cards he used. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just a fling. It was a scheme, and Isabel had walked right into it. The first signs of Isabel's regrets surfaced soon after. My phone buzzed with voicemails, her voice shifting from defiant to brittle. She complained about Julian's promised studio apartment, which turned out to be a cramped, mold-stained room above a laundromat, its walls vibrating with the rumble of dryers. She mentioned his demands for money, how he tracked her spending, his charm replaced by cold control. I deleted each message, my jaw tight. Her words stirred no sympathy, only a grim satisfaction that her fantasy was fraying. The bank offered little comfort. I reported the $40,000 transfer, but they needed proof it wasn't Isabel's choice. Karen, my lawyer, warned that recovering the money would be a slog, requiring emails, bank statements, anything to show fraud. I spent evenings combing through our financial history, each transaction a reminder of our shared dreams, dinners saved for, trips postponed. The process was draining, like rebuilding a collapsed structure brick by brick. I felt exposed, my trust in Isabel a wound that refused to close. One night, the weight became too much. I drove to a deserted park, the city's lights distant and uncaring. I sat on a bench, Buddy's leash loose in my hand, and let the tears come. They weren't for Isabel, but for the man I'd been blind, dutiful, thinking love was enough. A jogger passed, her shadow fleeting, and I straightened, wiping my face. I wouldn't let this define me. Support came in quiet ways. Alex, my college friend, called daily, his voice a tether to normalcy. He dragged me to a dive bar, where we played darts and avoided heavy talk. At work, Claire, a talented interior designer I'd collaborated with, noticed my distraction. She didn't pry. Instead, she left a chamomile tea on my desk one morning, its steam curling like a small kindness. Another day, she shared a story about her cat knocking over a paint can, her laughter easing the knot in my chest. These moments, small as they were, reminded me I wasn't alone. Then came a jolt of adrenaline. Late one evening, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It was Julian, his words sharp and taunting. He claimed I'd never touch him, that Isabel was his now. My hands shook, not with fear, but with a surge of defiance. I forwarded the message to Karen, who urged me to install a security camera. As I mounted it outside my door, the lens glinting in the dark, I felt a shift. I was no longer just surviving. I was fighting back, sketching a new plan for my life, one where Julian's shadow wouldn't reach. The fight to reclaim my life gained momentum, fueled by a quiet resolve that had replaced the chaos of those first weeks. My apartment, still scars from Isabel's departure, became a war room. I spread bank statements and emails across the dining table, working late into the night with Karen, my lawyer, to build a case against Julian's theft. Buddy slept at my feet, his soft snores a steady comfort as I traced the $40,000 transfer through cryptic transactions. Each document felt like a brick in a new foundation, one I was determined to stand on. I reached out to a woman Maya had mentioned, a former client of Julian's named Rachel. She agreed to meet at a quiet diner, her hands trembling as she recounted a story eerily similar to mine. Julian had charmed her during a rough patch in her marriage, promising a vibrant future. She'd left her husband, drained her savings, only to be discarded when the money ran dry. Rachel's voice cracked as she handed me screenshots of Julian's messages, manipulative promises laced with flattery. I thanked her, my chest tight with gratitude and anger. Her evidence, combined with Maya's insights, painted a clear picture of Julian's tactics. Karen pored over it, uncovering a link to a woman named Serafina, whose name appeared in several of Julian's accounts. The puzzle was taking shape. The bank responded to our updated filings with cautious optimism. Karen's meticulous dossier, bolstered by Rachel's testimony and transaction records, convinced them to freeze Julian's accounts pending investigation. A small victory, but it felt monumental. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the confirmation email, and allowed myself a fleeting smile. The money wasn't back, but Julian's grip on it was slipping. For the first time, I felt the scales tipping in my favor. I arranged a meeting with manager Evans at the gym, a stern man with a reputation for fairness. I presented the evidence: Rachel's screenshots, Maya's observations, and bank records showing Julian's suspicious transfers. Evans listened, his expression darkening with each page. He revealed that other clients had complained about Julian's overfamiliarity, but nothing concrete enough to act on until now. He promised immediate action. Days later, I learned Julian had been fired, his name flagged with industry boards for unethical conduct. The gym's swift response felt like a crack in Julian's carefully built facade. Julian didn't take it quietly. My phone buzzed with a string of late-night texts, his words venomous, accusing me of sabotaging his life. One message hinted at knowing my routines, my commute. My pulse raced, but I saved each text for Karen, who filed a report with the police. The tension peaked one evening as I left my office. I spotted Julian leaning against a street lamp across from my car, his silhouette unmistakable under the sodium glow. He didn't approach, just stared, a smirk playing on his lips. My heart pounded, but I held his gaze, refusing to flinch. I drove home, hand steady on the wheel, and checked my new security camera's feed the moment I arrived. That night, I slept with a baseball bat by my bed, not out of fear but readiness. Julian's intimidation only sharpened my focus. Isabel's unraveling mirrored his. Her calls flooded my voicemail, a chaotic mix of desperation and rage. She described Julian's tightening control, how he mocked her for questioning his plans, demanded she cover their mounting bills. Her dream apartment was a prison, its peeling walls a daily reminder of her mistake. One message stood out, her voice hoarse from crying. She admitted to believing Julian's lies about my neglect, how he'd painted me as the villain. She begged for help, then cursed me for ignoring her. I listened, my face blank, and deleted each one. Her pain was real, but it was hers to carry. I'd spent too long shouldering her discontent. Amid the storm, Claire became a quiet anchor. Our work discussions at the firm spilled into longer conversations, often over coffee in the break room. She shared stories of her early struggles as a designer, her voice warm with resilience. One afternoon, she invited me to an art gallery after hours, a small event for local creatives. I hesitated, the weight of my divorce still heavy, but her easy smile nudged me forward. We wandered through abstract paintings, debating their meanings, our laughter cutting through my lingering fog. Claire didn't push or pry, but her presence reminded me of who I could be: a man capable of joy, not just survival. The high point came unexpectedly. Karen called late one evening, her voice clipped with urgency. The bank had traced a second account tied to Serafina, its transactions overlapping with Julian's in ways that screamed collusion. Police were now involved, treating it as potential fraud. I sat on my couch, Buddy's head in my lap, as the news sank in. Julian's empire of lies was crumbling, and I'd helped expose it. But the thrill was tempered by a strange ache. I thought of Isabel, caught in his web, her pride shattered. I didn't pity her, not exactly, but I mourned the woman she'd been before ambition and envy consumed her. I walked to my balcony, the city's pulse humming below. The fight wasn't over, legal battles loomed, and Julian's threats lingered, but I felt stronger, my blueprint for the future clearer. I was no longer the man Isabel had mocked, tethered to her vision of failure. I was Daniel, architect of my own rebirth, ready to face whatever came next. The battle had hardened me, but the scars were starting to feel like badges of survival. My apartment, now half empty as I packed for a fresh start, echoed with the ghosts of old arguments and broken promises. I moved with purpose, boxing up books and blueprints, each item a choice to leave the past behind. Buddy trailed me, his tail wagging, sensing the shift in my spirit. The fight with Julian and Isabel wasn't over, but I was no longer just reacting. I was building something new. One rainy evening, as I sorted through old photos, the doorbell shattered the quiet. My security camera revealed Isabel, a shadow of the woman I'd known. Her designer coat was soaked, her makeup streaked, her eyes hollow with defeat. I hesitated, my hand on the lock, memories of her laughter and cruelty flashing like warning signs. But I opened the door, not out of pity, but to face her one last time. She stepped inside, dripping onto the hardwood, her voice trembling as she spoke. Julian had vanished, she said, taking the last of her cash and her car keys. She discovered Serafina was his wife, the mastermind behind his scams, orchestrating every move while Julian played the charming frontman. Isabel's words tumbled out, a torrent of regret and desperation. She'd been a pawn, she claimed, blinded by his promises of a life she'd craved. I stood silent, leaning against the counter, letting her unravel. She described their final days, how Julian had grown erratic, accusing her of ruining his plans. He'd left her in that dingy apartment, the walls stained with the truth of her choices. She tried calling her parents, her friends, but no one answered. Her world had collapsed, and now she stood before me, seeking salvation. I felt a pang, not for her, but for the years I'd poured into a woman who'd chosen to burn it all down. I spoke, my voice calm, but unyielding. There was no us anymore, I told her. She made her choice when she walked out, when she stole our savings, when she laughed at my pain. Her eyes widened, searching for a crack in my resolve, but found none. She tried to pivot, her tones softening, pleading for a second chance. She promised to change, to rebuild what we'd had. I cut her off, my words deliberate. I recounted her final taunts, the ring in the trash, the $40,000 she'd handed to a con man. I wasn't cruel, just honest, forcing her to face the wreckage she'd created. Her face crumpled, and she sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. For a moment, I saw the Isabel I'd loved, the one who danced with me at our wedding, her smile bright with hope. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. Her tears turned to anger, her voice rising as she accused me of orchestrating her downfall. She claimed I'd turned everyone against her, that I'd enjoyed watching her suffer. I didn't argue. I walked to the door and held it open, rain pattering outside. I wished her peace, I said, but this was goodbye. She stood, her shoulders slumped, and screamed that I'd regret this, that I was cold, heartless. I didn't flinch. As she stepped into the storm, I closed the door, the click final like sealing a vault. I leaned against it, my breath steady, feeling not triumph but release. The weight of her betrayal lifted, leaving space for something lighter. The legal gears kept turning. Karen finalized the divorce papers, the court acknowledging Isabel's financial misconduct. The $40,000 remained elusive, tangled in Julian's frozen accounts, but I'd won the apartment and my freedom. I listed the place for sale, its memories too heavy to carry. Within days, offers poured in, the market favored my timing. I found a new home, a studio with a rooftop deck overlooking the city skyline. It was smaller, simpler, but mine. I moved in with Buddy, who bounded onto the deck, chasing shadows as if claiming it too. Unpacking felt like sketching a new design, each choice deliberate, each corner a promise of possibility. A smaller, unexpected climax unfolded during the move. As I loaded boxes into my truck, a car screeched to a stop nearby. It was Nicole, Isabel's former best friend, her face tense with urgency. She'd cut ties with Isabel after learning the truth, but had heard rumors of Julian circling back to town, possibly targeting another gym client. She handed me a USB drive, her hand shaking. It contained voicemails Julian had left her, taunting her for warning others about him. I thanked her, my mind racing. I passed the drive to Karen, who forwarded it to the police. It wasn't my fight anymore, but it felt good to know Julian's noose was tightening, his arrogance his own undoing. I stood on my new deck that night, city lights pulsing below. The divorce was done, the apartment sold, Isabel gone. I wasn't healed, Not fully, but I was free. Buddy nudged my hand, his warmth grounding me. I thought of Claire, of Alex, of the life waiting beyond this chapter. The storm had raged, but I'd found my way through. Now it was time to build again. Months passed, and the raw edges of my wounds softened into something bearable, even hopeful. My new studio apartment, with its slanted ceilings and wide windows, became a sanctuary. I hung sketches of unfinished projects on the walls, their lines a promise of creation. Buddy claimed the sunny spot by the deck, his golden fur glowing as he napped. I found rhythm again, my days filled with purpose. At the architectural firm, my designs sparked with fresh energy, earning nods from colleagues who'd seen me at my lowest. I ran along the river most mornings, not to chase some ideal physique, but to feel my own strength, my breath steady against the dawn. Life settled into a gentle cadence. Alex joined me for weekend hikes, our conversations drifting from sports to dreams we'd shelved in our 20s. I read novels again, losing myself in stories that reminded me of life's vastness. Claire became a constant, our connection deepening through shared moments. We explored the city together, wandering farmers markets or sketching ideas over wine at hole-in-the-wall bistros. She spoke of her love for restoring old spaces, her eyes bright with possibility, and I shared my vision for sustainable designs. Our relationship grew quietly, rooted in mutual respect, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd known. News of Julian reached me like a distant echo. Karen called one afternoon, her voice clipped with satisfaction. Federal agents had arrested him in a neighboring state, caught mid-scam with a new target, a wealthy divorcee who'd grown suspicious. His charm had failed him, his pattern exposed by the evidence we'd gathered: Rachel's screenshots, Nicole's voicemails, my bank records. Serafina, his wife and co-conspirator, remained elusive, rumored to have fled overseas with a chunk of their illicit gains. Charges piled against Julian, fraud and conspiracy among them, each count a nail in the coffin of his schemes. I felt no glee, only a quiet relief that justice had found him. The $40,000 was likely gone, but its loss no longer defined me. Isabel faded from my world. Through a mutual acquaintance, I heard she'd moved back to her parents' small town, working odd jobs at a local diner. Her social media presence, once a curated shrine to perfection, had vanished. Occasionally, an email from an unfamiliar address landed in my inbox, its subject line vague. I deleted them unopened, my heart unmoved. She was a chapter closed. Her choice is a shadow I no longer carried. A small, vivid moment crystallized my new beginning. Claire and I attended a gallery opening, her hand warm in mine as we admired bold sculptures. A woman approached, her face vaguely familiar, and introduced herself as a friend of Rachel's. She thanked me, her voice soft, for helping expose Julian. Her sister had been one of his early victims, and my actions had given her closure. I nodded, caught off guard, a lump rising in my throat. Claire squeezed my hand, her smile grounding me. That night, I realized the storm had done more than destroy, it had cleared the way for meaning. I sold Isabel's wedding ring, its diamond cold in my palm. With the money, I enrolled Claire and myself in a workshop on sustainable architecture held in a coastal city we'd both wanted to visit. We planned to explore its cliffs and cafes, sketching ideas under the open sky. The future stretched before me, not without challenges, but rich with possibility. I looked at Buddy, sprawled across my couch, and felt a truth settle in my bones. Pain had broken me open, but it had also taught me what mattered: honesty, friendship, the courage to rebuild. I was free, not just from Isabel, but to be the man I'd always meant to become.